Hello, Rachel.
Hi, Alexis.
How are you today?
I am doing pretty well right now. Thank you very much. I've had quite a restful day. How about yourself?
I am still vibing on our presentation yesterday, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very fun. Great venue. I really like that lecturette. Yeah, and good fun. I thought we handled it very well, if I do say so myself.
I would absolutely agree. Do you want to let people know what it was that we did yesterday, and we'll kind of segue from that into today?
Yeah, great. So Rachel and I have been running a meetup group, and we've started to make friends in other meetup groups. And we were invited by another meetup group that's been running for a long time and has a huge following to speak at their event for gentle thinkers. And so we spoke about NVC, but particularly how do we use nonviolent communication to turn conflict into connection. Yeah. How was it for you?
Yeah, it was good. I love the topic. None of us, no matter how calm we are, no matter how well trained we are, if we live our lives, none of us can avoid conflict. So I think it's such a great topic of how to use conflict constructively and to understand each other more deeply and get more connected. And I definitely left our talk on a bit of a high, and it reminded me that I think you mentioned again, and I've heard you mention it several times before, Alexis, that learning a needs-based tool such as nonviolent communication has been quite transformative for you.
Yes.
Somewhat life-changing. And you've mentioned that enough times in front of me now that I thought, let's have a chat online about your experience. So today it's kind of like me interviewing you rather than the other way around, about how you've integrated this needs-based model of NVC into your work and into your life, because you've been kind of studying and exploring NVC for less time than me. I'm curious. I've been kind of into it for about 17 years. I'd love to know more about what that's like.
Okay.
Off the back of this quote, because I know you're a trauma-informed practitioner, and the quote I shared on the Facebook page earlier, if people didn't see it, is from Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote The Body Keeps the Score. And he says, while trauma keeps us dumbfounded, the path out of trauma is paved with words, carefully assembled piece by piece, until our whole story can be revealed. And if you've read Bessel van der Kolk's book, you'll know that the first half of the book is a lot around using language and talk therapy to help people make sense of their experiences of different types of trauma. And then the second half of the book explores voice and body and breath-based techniques for healing trauma. But the first half is really about how to use your intellect and your language to make sense of your experiences. And I'm wondering where you're at, Alexis, on your integration of language-based approaches and breath and body-based approaches. So I don't know, can I just start with a really broad question like that?
Yes, you can. Thank you. Can I just say I'm feeling really honoured to be interviewed by you, which is, I guess, what you do all day, every day. So where am I at with my integration of my trauma? It's a really great question. Thank you. It's interesting when you talk about assembling the language to tell the story. I don't so much feel like I'm using it to tell the story, although I imagine that does happen every time we meet someone new and we frame our past in a new light. But language has absolutely been the gift that you have given me, Rachel. Absolutely. I think mostly through osmosis, but I notice that when you do use a word, particularly the needs, so autonomy, competence, contribution, significance. I mean, I'm expanding the repertoire. even the intention of being received for, well, to be received for my intention. You've given me so much language around needs, and that has been very, very central to my integration of trauma. And how is hard to explain, other than I think it is to do with assertion. And with assertion and validation comes a deeper alignment with my values, and not just internally but externally, so I can express them and I can communicate with people who are able to facilitate the actualization of my needs and values and longings. So I would say that language is the conduit for the body and into physical action and physical form. I've not thought of this before. This is all very new. And yet it also makes sense that from my body, through my breath, out of my mouth, into the external world, into a way that can be received by somebody else's nervous system, translated through their experience into their body. It makes sense to me. I mean, this is somewhat esoteric, but it's also physical. That language is the conduit for making sense of our experiences.
Well, our words contain energy, don't they? You know that because people's words and tone impact us greatly, for better or for worse, every day in the workplace, whether it's interactions with our kids or our partner. You know, it's the living energy of our words and our voice that is such a big part of our human experience.
Yes.
What would you say?
Yes. Yes. How about you, Rachel? How has language facilitated your integration of trauma, of your trauma?
Well, I do think that when I think about my own experiences of trauma, or my clients who've come to me, particularly early in their therapy, it is liberating. For most people, everybody's different, but for most people, it's liberating to tell their story. You know, because keeping our story inside of us, just as emotion and trauma and physiological, you know, arousal that's undiffused or undischarged is you know, what happens. It's why we get stuck. It's why we feel as if we haven't fully moved on from the past. And what I notice with many people, probably not everybody, but when people can give a narrative, and they tend to jump around, that's what we all do, but then they might tell me the story or different pieces of it multiple times. And what I think is happening in their brain is a neurological integration, a kind of making sense of their lives or of their experience. So they can sort of get a sense of, that actually did happen to me. There's something self-validating as well as liberating in telling our story and being received and believed. And it's through the use of language that I think we can connect with bodily and unconscious experiences, such as emotions, such as needs and values, without being able to put those things into words. You know, it's very difficult to connect with others around our experiences. So my understanding is that there's neurological integration across different, which is linkages across different parts of the brain that we create through talking about our experiences, our outer experience of what happened and our inner experience of feelings and needs, our thoughts, memories. And then through that neurological integration, we can learn and we can have a more integrated sense of self, a sense of wholeness. And that's been my personal experience, and I've seen it in my clients. And I'm still so interested in how body-based practices such as yoga or singing or meditation or exercise, how these facilitate and support this integration. And, you know, you and I have come from very different backgrounds in some ways. You know, I've come from a very kind of, you know, university. I know you have as well, which doing a master's is just the same. It's totally living in the intellect and numbers and stats and theories. But you've had a longer career in working with the body and the breath compared to me. And yeah, I just think it's a fantastic combination. And I guess it goes to top down, bottom up, and language is top down, I would say. Would that be fair to say, do you think? Language is top down?
Yeah, I think it is. It's the cortex that facilitates language, right? Might be certain parts, Broca's area, for example, but yeah, absolutely top down. And that would be also, I would guess, where narrative therapy works, from more of a strategic sense of perspective or distance from my experience. It allows it to all be pieced together.
It allows it to be pieced together and incorporated into one story rather than being fragmented. And I think you're right. I think it allows naming a feeling, for example, allows us to diffuse from that feeling a little bit, instead of this thing we might call anxiety, hijacking my mind and my brain. Once I've named it,
I can separate a little.
Separate a little. And I think it's the same with talking about what happened to us. Same with talking about our needs. In fact, it was Marshall Rosenberg who said, getting in touch with our needs makes them less pressing. In other words, less of a sense of urgency. You know, it can be there can be so much anxiety around having unmet needs, like I've got to have it now. You know, I don't have any trust, or they're not including me, or I'm not getting any respect, and I've got to have it now. But what I notice with myself and my clients is, if I can really talk about my needs, kind of hang out with them and dwell there for a while and accept them and the pain of not having them happen right now, then, you know, I kind of come, I can accept that, yeah, that's not what's happening right now. I am in limbo. I'm not getting what I need. But they become less pressing. They're not pressing up, sort of like insisting on urgently being met. I think he was on something. Yeah. That
resonates very much for me. And again, since meeting you, Rachel, and the validation was the first step. Validating community, connection, belonging is so central, so central to me. And I think it did drive my behavior, mostly unconsciously, until it was validated. And as you're speaking about that urgency passing, I am reminded that my experience of acknowledging my needs has allowed me also to, it's more than demonstrate, it's live them and share them. And, I haven't quite worked out how this works. You might have something to add to this, Rachel, but I've noticed that when it's important, when I've identified a need in myself, it's often a need in the other person, or a need if I've identified it in somebody else is often something, it's simultaneously received. As I contribute the need, I'm also receiving the need. Does that resonate for you?
Yeah, and it's exactly what Marshall Rosenberg talked about when he used the metaphor of the joy of children feeding ducks. And that image of the joy of children feeding ducks. The ducks are having a great time. The children are having a great time. Who's giving to who? You know, they're both experiencing kind of connection. I mean, for example, take the need of connection. I mean, I can feel connected to somebody and they may report not feeling connected to me. That's entirely possible. In fact, I think that happens all the time. So these needs are in me and I experience them in a felt or embodied way. And yet others are always implicated. You know, like I get an experience of my need being met through relationship, always through relationship. Which is, it's tricky because then I don't want to make the other person responsible for my happiness or my wellness, you know, like you have to meet my needs or else. That's coercive control. And as we know, that doesn't, everybody pays the price for that. It doesn't work. And yet there's always another being, whether it's my pet or another human being or a tree or whatever, you know, that's implicated in me having my needs met. And so I don't know where I was going with that. What were you just talking about before I started talking?
So we were talking about the reciprocity of needs being met simultaneously. And you were talking about the ducks and that the children feeding the ducks, who's really benefiting. And yes, if you've got your thought, because I've got one too. Go ahead.
Well, no, it reminded me, the ducks, and then that reminded me of being on the retreats that I did with Robert Gonzalez many times, and so much dyad work. And I remember thinking, who's giving whom empathy? I'd kind of forget at some point, you know, I'm person A, they're person B, and I'm kind of holding space for them, and, you know, for them to receive empathy. But it always happened, and at some point I couldn't remember, because through giving empathy, I was feeling empathy, so therefore I was receiving empathy. And it's like this with a lot of our interdependency needs, particularly like support and love and encouragement and empathy and trust. You know, these are very reciprocal, aren't they? Very interdependent.
They are.
Yeah,
they are. And you're right. I'm wondering if that's the case with all of the needs being met. But the thought that was coming to mind as you were talking was about what has been incredibly transformative for me is taking the emphasis off of the strategy, the way that I thought the need had to be met, because I have a lot of conditioning around that, and that was driving a lot of my decisions. I mean, I can think of specifically in the 5 years before I met you, you know, for example, the kind of people that I should be hanging out with. That was quite a focus for me at that time. And, you know, I chose them kind of probably based on conditioning and should, whereas since taking the emphasis off of the strategy, it's allowed me to just have my needs met from such a broad array of people and places and experiences that I could not possibly have conceived of. It's almost like it takes it out of my small controlling mind into a much broader range of possibility when I take the focus off of the strategy. And that's sorry. That's unbelievably.
We're all friends here. I'm sure no one.
I love the forgiveness, the hand of forgiveness. We're all friends here. Yeah, the emphasis shifting to the needs is transformative, I would say.
And so learning, because Bessel van der Kolk's quote today was about words paving the pathway. So having a literacy for you around needs, which was, you know, really getting the embodied energy of these words, these needs words, has paved more pathways for you by the sounds of it.
Yes, absolutely it has. And to the point now that I feel like the words I'm sharing are helping others to pave their pathways.
Yeah, because how have you brought this needs-based approach into your work with your clients?
Well, very often my clients have started to call it my menu. What's on the menu today? Very often we'll start with that. What are you feeling and what are you needing? And then that guides the direction of our session. That's one way. I've also been doing a needs analysis, what I call a needs analysis, which is essentially through listening, and I make notes and kind of map out somebody's latest stories and latest longings. And then we piece together the needs, and then we might have a look at how they're being attended to. And that's where I've been tying in the attachment theory and seeing that we are attending to the needs consistently with lots of availability, reliably, responsively, and predictably. That's one way. And the Jungian approach to it I've been using is, you know, let's ask your inner child, how are these needs being met right now? And the child might say, well, you haven't really given me much playtime. I'm feeling a bit deprived. And then the inner father might say, well, I'm getting my needs for predictability and security met. And that's all pretty good. And the inner mother might say, well, those ones around nurturing, we could certainly top up those a little bit. So the needs has been central, absolutely central. And many of my clients have reflected that back too. I'm thinking specifically of one of the precious members of our yoga and psychology community who said to me under the cherry blossom tree, she said that needs-based stuff is an epiphany. And it was this precious moment where we together acknowledged, needs are really, really central here. The missing ingredient.
Yeah, having the words, but also connecting with the meaning or the felt experience of those words really helps pave the pathway or the pathways out of stuckness, out of the past. It doesn't even have to be like the quote we shared earlier was around trauma, but can it just be out of the past, right? Out of old patterns, old conditioning. It doesn't even have to be trauma. Having a literacy around feelings and needs, in my experience and in your experience by the sounds of it, helps us to think more creatively.
That's right. To create possibility. Yes.
So that, what did you call it? That sheet that you just held up and shared?
Menu.
Oh, your menu. So I've just shared a very similar version of that from the same website, Wise Heart, in the comments. So if you're listening right now, if you're on the call, one of the 13 people, click on the link in the comments to that resource and check it out, because it has the template up the top for giving empathy, which we used yesterday in our workshop or in our talk that we gave at the Brisbane Square Library, to give empathy with the format, do you feel blank because you need or you value blank? So we guess, we take an empathic guess. This is our exercise from yesterday of the feeling and the need or needs going on for the person. And then there's the template on this sheet also for expressing honestly, what I'm reacting to, how I'm feeling about it, what I need, and making the request using the format, would you be willing to? Now, this is like our menu. This is like our little Bible in a way, isn't it, Alexis?
Well, it is. It's about the, in the 18 months that you and I have been working together, Rachel, it's the only document that we have used consistently. And every event that we've run, that's been our seminal focus. And that's pretty powerful. I mean, it's just one page.
One page.
So simple.
If anybody who's listening right now has clicked on that PDF that I've shared in the comments, could you let me know if that link works? Please just say, yes, I can open it. I want to just make sure you can open the link that I've shared with everybody and that people watching later can open it.
Could we give them an exercise to do with the PDF? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would love that. Let's just quickly, if you haven't already, go to the comments, open that PDF that I shared. It's a very long URL, but hopefully it opens a new tab for you. And think of one situation in your life recently where you were feeling less than wonderful, where you were perhaps feeling quite emotionally charged about something, triggered in some way or another, and see if you can use that list, that one-page menu that we were just talking about, to identify at least one feeling and at least one need that were going on, happening for you or still happening for you in the situation that you're thinking about, and put it in the comments. What's the feeling going on for you? What's the underlying need that you've got in that situation?
So yes, there's feedback. Thank you, Stephanie, Joe, and Libby. It opens.
Okay, great. So I'm putting my comments, my feeling and my need word in the chat now. So it says North Brisbane psychologist, but that's me. I am going to use a very global feeling word and say that earlier today I was feeling stressed and my need was for support. So do you want to put one in there, Alexis, or have you not got the capability of doing that?
No, I do have the capability. It's also showing up as North Brisbane psychologists.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going with grateful. Because the need that is being met is, I think it's congruence. It's not on the list, but I'm going to add that one.
That's a value, isn't it? Is it congruence in the form of
I could say integrity, I could say authenticity, I could say honesty. Why did you pick yours, Rachel? Tell us about.
Mine was from earlier today, just because I'm pretty sure I have long COVID, feeling a lot of pain and fatigue, and my need was support from my family, and I actually received that support. So then I felt grateful. I'm going to put one right now though, and I'll surprise you. I'll put it in the comments. And my feeling right now and my need that's being met right now. I've just put it in the comments. Hopefully it'll come up. And if you can't see it, I'll tell you what it is. It's invigorated, which I think is a feeling, and collaboration.
And Sharon, I'm just going to let you know that your need for dinner is actually a strategy. Just put it in your back pocket.
Would you like to explain the difference between need and strategy? Because you did mention it earlier. What's the difference?
It's so powerful. Okay, so a strategy is the means by which the need is met, right? But when you acknowledge the need, it's much more ethereal and it can come in any way. So you may need connection, you may need sustenance. The need would be sustenance, and the dinner would be the strategy. And that's what I was talking about earlier with the way that things are met. I mean, the people I'm connecting with are not people that I would have 5 years ago told myself I should connect with for my career. And yet they are so beautiful and my career is thriving since meeting them. So, yeah, I would encourage you to place your emphasis on the sustenance, because that dinner might be even better than your small mind can conceive.
And we fall into this trap of confusing strategy and need often when people say things like, I need a holiday, which is the way we speak. You know, I would never want to be the NVC police. It's good, though, to get accurate, as you're saying, connect with that underlying need. Holiday is a strategy for relaxation, fun, adventure, you know, words.
How do you describe the difference? What's the difference between a need and a strategy?
Well, the need is universal. So all of us want to a greater or lesser extent, all of us want fun. All of us want relaxation. All of us want inclusion and belonging, connection, choice.
Yep.
Do you want to throw some more in there?
Autonomy, independence, differentiation, individuation, actualization, going for the big ones.
Yeah. And significance, to know that we matter, to be seen, to be heard,
yes,
to receive empathy. I mean, these are daily needs, a bit of recognition. We all want competence, a sense of our own mastery. And it doesn't matter where you live in the world. These are universal human needs. And you look across cultures and you see that there are different strategies in different cultures for meeting these needs. You know, different cultures do different things to meet the need for belonging or significance or
I'm wondering whether we could even collectively, because, you know, this is a pretty intimate space, and even the comments, you know, you guys are here with us. Jo mentioned that she's feeling invisible and there's a need to be seen and heard, I think it was. I wonder if we could collectively acknowledge Jo and just say, Jo Isaacs, you have showed up here regularly. We know your name, Jo Isaacs. You are a very welcome member of the community, and we see you, Jo. We see you, even without having met. And this is maybe a prime example of needs being ethereal. They can be met across the screen. They can be met through the sound coming through your phone or your computer. We see you, Jo, and we appreciate the fact that you show up. I mean, you are our muse, actually, especially those of you that show up regularly. our muses.
Yeah, absolutely. We wouldn't get on here if it weren't for you. Thank you, Alexis. I wholeheartedly endorse everything you've said. And now, for some reason, I couldn't see the comments, but now I can. Libby has said, feeling moved and loved. Jaren has thanked us for the clarification between a strategy and a need.
Pleasure.
Stephanie says, my feeling is frustration and my need is to recover from this flu that I've had for the past 3 weeks. So your need is health and wellness. And I so relate to you right now on that one, Stephanie. I'm really, really grateful for the fact that I most of the time do feel also well and healthy. So hope that you do soon.
So thank you for bringing your vulnerability to the group as well. I've just seen, and I have not seen this option before, but we have the option of bringing people on the video.
I have noticed that in the past and thought, wouldn't it be mean if we just suddenly brought someone on camera? Let's not do that. But we could try it out next week.
You have a need to be cheeky, Rachel. You have a need for adventure.
I also have a need for respect and consent. So if anyone would ever like to be brought on camera, just let us know in the comments and we can do that. But I promise we won't do it without your consent. Should we, thank you for the rambling chat today. It's good to I think one of the points that I wanted to make around words, paving our pathway, is also what I often say, which is language is one way to make the unconscious conscious. Until I learned MVC and could name my feelings and my needs, I think they remained often in my unconscious, which is just, there's nothing mysterious about unconscious. All it means in English is not, means not, not conscious. So when I'm not conscious of my feelings and my unmet needs, how can I possibly ask clearly for what I want or say clearly how I'm feeling in a way that takes responsibility for my feelings until they are in my conscious awareness? And language is what has helped me be able to make the unconscious conscious in this way.
So, speaking, I can't help but want to argue the case for kinesthetic language. And this is something that I've tried to put words to, and I feel like I'm only starting to get there. But my qualitative experience is different when I'm in contact with my sensation. And it feels very much the same way as putting words out of me. The minute I acknowledge a sensation, it's almost like it's no longer me. I'm no longer my body, or I'm no longer these thoughts, as in the case of language. Again, that separation that allows me to connect with, wow, if I'm not my body, if I'm not these sensations, then what am I? What am I? It's obviously much more vast, yes. much more capable. There's endless possibility in that if I am more than this body. So there's something about the physicality. It's a language. I'm going to keep trying to put words to it. It's a language that comes through my body. I mean, body language is one way to describe it, the expression that comes from the body. But even the sensation itself is an expression, even if I'm not doing anything with it. Yeah.
No, I couldn't agree with you more, Alexis. And I think this is also why humans are so profoundly drawn towards movement, but also towards music, because words are only one way to express our intelligence and our creativity. And yet even the fact that we can talk about this wordless, numinous, nameless intelligence of the body, we're still using words to kind of talk about that. And yet we can have the experience that's direct, that's not mediated through language, and that animals must be having all the time. And it's so wonderful, I think, if we can have psychological flexibility between a language-based experience of ourselves and a direct experience of ourselves, and then kind of move somewhat consciously between those two modalities.
Well, And it's occurring to me that they're the same. I can only speak from my body. I had a beautiful conversation with a very senior psychologist this last week over a brownie and coffee, and she was talking about, she describes now in this stage of her career, she describes the human as a system. And, you know, she says that so much of our struggles go back to Descartes' I think, therefore I am, the identification with the mind and the split from the body. And she says, you cannot split them. Your mind only exists because of your body. Your body only exists because it's inhabited by your mind. It's the same thing. And I'm experiencing the same with language, that language is from my body, and I'm making different vibrations depending on how I use the flow of my breath, how I tone my vocal cords, you know, what I'm aware of within my body. It's in fact changing my choice of language and the way that I'm speaking. It's all the same, really. Mind, body, language, sensation.
It's all interconnected. So in summary, before we tell everyone about our upcoming events, you know, in summary, you know, honing and refining our ability to use language such that our words possess a kind of living energy, that they, as you say, they do come from our heart, from our body, from our soul. I don't know. This is something we can get better and better and better at.
Yes.
And so it's an emotional and a literacy of needs. And so many people have told me over the years that as they got better with the language, as you say, wrapping their mouths around, you know, the words in their experience, so many people have told me that it's just helped them so much. And so our work, whether it's talks, retreats, workshops, you know, whatever we're focusing on, it's all this stuff, isn't it? Where you and I are all about helping people get better and better at putting their experience into words, at opening up, at receiving, at expressing, you know, so that they get.
And it is an intelligence. There's an intelligence. I saw Maverick today with Tom Cruise, the latest Top Gun. And it's full of close-ups and all of the subtleties within the dynamics were all portrayed. And it occurred to me, wow, even Hollywood has stepped up in terms of their emotional intelligence. And within that is this literacy, as just like reading and writing and arithmetic. Our foundation is words to describe our experience, whether that is a concept or a thought or a theory, whether it is a sensation or a bodily experience, or whether it is an emotion. It does start with literacy, and that translates to intelligence. And there is nothing more empowering in the world than feeling like you've got a prowess over your language. You have showed me that. Rachel, you are such a beautiful teacher. Honestly, I don't know where I'd be without you. You liberated the frustration that was inside of me all this time. And it is through language, but it's more than that. It's lived experience as well.
The language is just the vehicle for the energy. But thank you for saying that. It's absolutely my pleasure. I feel like I was put on earth to learn and then share what I've learned. And I agree with you. There's nothing more empowering than honing our natural intelligence and being able to master language around our experience. It's so empowering. So this conversation has felt very much like one of our walks along the river, just kind of wonderful and rambling and a real kind of dialogue. And I think we agreed yesterday that you and I have never really had any debates, that we always tend to end up in dialogues rather than debating ideas. We dialogue about ideas, which is wonderful.
Yes, it would be interesting to hear feedback from listeners. Yes, especially those, you know, like Joe, who's watched several, Libby, who has got a strong sense of us. Those of you who've been watching, it would be interesting to know what you prefer, the more structured approach or the more dialogue approach. There's certainly been a lot of listeners today, so thanks, guys. That's really wonderful to have you all here.
So before we wrap up, Alexis, could you tell everyone about our upcoming workshop this month and the one after that, and maybe our retreat?
Yeah, I'd love to. In fact, I got an opportunity to start speaking about it last night. I was invited to speak at the Hounds. It's our local rugby league club, and they lapped it up.
Right.
So it's on motivation, and we're calling the workshop "Motivation More Than Meets the Eye." And again, the shift is from this extrinsic motivation, or perhaps this strategic focus, strategy-based approach to motivation, to a much more intrinsic, which comes from connecting with your needs and your values and your longings. So it's on the 24th of July. It's a Sunday from 9 till 12:30. It's here in Graceville, just at our local U-Box, our local gym. It's $130, and within that we can assure you that you'll have a very memorable experience. The group that are coming are very solid and very committed and highly literate, really, across the areas that we now converse in. So even newbies, you're going to be lifted to a pretty high level if you join us. So I'll post the link below so you can jump on board.
Indeed. And in November, we'll mention it again, but in November we have a 4-day retreat on North Stradbroke Island.
Yes, we do. And there has been some requests. Mia, thank you for your request. I will get back to you. Tickets are available. I just haven't officially launched it. So you guys who are listening, you've got that pre-launch opportunity. It's the 18th to the 22nd of November. And it's $6.95 for 2 days, but we would hope that you can join us for the 4 days. So again, I'll put the link below so that you can start getting your tickets.
I just have to tell anyone who's thinking of coming, definitely come. It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful spot, and we dive so deep, and we have great fun as well. Yeah. And we have our monthly practice group on the last Sunday of every month.
I think it's the 30th, the next one. So yeah, that's in stone, set in stone, last Sunday of every month. So you can book that out till the end of the year and just come along. That's our bread and butter. And we love sharing our bread and butter.
Well, thank you for the chat today, Alexis. It was great.
Thank you, Rachel. That was really generous of you to put me in the question seat, which reminds me, that's what we're planning for the retreat. So if you would like to be in the question seat, jump on board. And we're back into good rhythm, same time next week, Rachel. Does that work for you?
Yep. Exactly right. Yes, I look forward to that. So have a good night, everyone, and we'll see you next Sunday at 5.
See you then.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.